Please stand if you're able and join us for our opening song.
It's a good one. You want to do that one for special? No, let's just. Yeah. All right. No, I'm glad everybody let me know.
If we had one of those movie clicker things, we'd be saying, take two.
Yes, indeed we would. All right.
It's all right. It's all good. It's extra energy. And this morning it is my pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to the Louisville Center for Spiritual Living, where we just want to create a space for you to explore and expand your relationship with Spirit as an expression of the One. And we light the candle in representation of that One. The light of Spirit, the light of the I Am, the light of the world. And that light is the center of each and every one of us in our own way, and yet collectively together. Collectively together, it is the center of Louisville Center for Spiritual Living, and everyone that is connected to it in any way. And collectively beyond that, everyone that is connected to those people, and those people extended beyond them. In truth, it is one light. We breathe one air. We have access to one mind, and actually one living heart. And so I call this time good and very good, in gratitude for this opportunity to come together in communion and the conviction of faith, to understand more about spiritual practices, and in particular, about the spiritual practice of visioning. And so in that gratitude, I just release this word into the law that only says yes at the level of the highest possible good. And I release it, and I let it be, and so it is. You're up.
Gordy, good news. That would be me.
So back behind the mic.
Is this a little bit better?
Behind. Our newsman is in training.
Always. So, announcements, our weekly announcements, and here we have. So today at church, a guy in a suit tried to drown me. And I kid you not, my friend just stood there taking pictures.
Such is a child's experience of baptism.
Okay. And our men's group, the next meeting then is August 1st, around the corner. First Thursday of each month, well, almost always. And just for those of you who are keeping track of small things, my daughter gets married 9 days later. I said I will be sober by that time. Anyway, okay. Community visioning for LCSL, first Saturday of every month, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 10:45 Eastern Standard Time by Telebridge. Here's the numbers. Contact Vicky Jeter. And Vicky, would you like to say something?
Just one thing I have to say about this week's visioning is sort of ironic because this is a talk on visioning. This process is what our theme is today for this talk. However, I want to let you know that the visioning is still going on Saturday. It will be led by one of our distance practitioners, Brenda Horning, because I will be away facilitating a women's circle. And the Spirit just had that unfold that way. But that'll just show you, experiencing how various people facilitate things. We all bring our own flavor to it. And I know that Brenda is looking forward to that opportunity. So after today, if you're inspired, do plan on getting on the call, and then you'll get to experience more of the process.
Is there any pay involved with that?
Oh, no. That's a public service.
Okay, another Social Sunday gathering coming up, Sunday, August 4th.
That's next week.
Next week. Be there. And chili too. Yeah. That looks great, doesn't it, though? Yeah. And it tastes even better. Okay. Practitioner of the day, Bev Issinger. Meet Bev up in front of the power shower. Very fun, guys. For a group prayer. Confidential prayer by request, see any practitioner. So the shower we're talking about is right over here, and we will not turn on either the gas or the water. It's a nice quiet space. And I think we have a story.
Quiet space for anyone who wishes to have a prayer request done at a group.
Yes.
Happy to have you.
And then,
Okay. July's affirmation altogether. Life's not about learning to find my power. It's about learning to wield the power I've always had. Yes. Story time. Somebody has a story they want to tell. You can't tell on me. You can tell on anybody else that you'd like to, including yourselves. What's your story? You know that story you've been thinking about telling them, but you didn't want to? This is a good time right here. Yes, ma'am?
Well, my name's Lori. I'm visiting from, actually relocating from New York City to Los Angeles, and I'm here partly to visit with Constance. And quick story, living in New York, you have to wait for subways and buses and, no car. And what I've learned to do through the power of positive thinking is, I think
Esther and Abraham call it segment intending. So as I'm preparing to meet the subway or the bus, I say the subway's coming right on time, the bus is coming right on time, and about 80% of the time it does.
Wow, awesome. Okay, thank you for bringing it up. Somebody else? You
I have
want
just,
to? Yes, Beth.
it's not a story, it's a change in the service today that we're trying out. So I am the practitioner of the day. We're also going to see me for the reading and offering blessing. So the person of the day, who's the practitioner, is going to serve all those roles for a while, and we're going to try it out. You're going to give us feedback as to what you think. All right?
And when you want to volunteer for one of those, except for the practitioner of the day, just let the practitioner of the day know when it's coming up, and you can see any of us, and we'll let you know who's next, and if you want to just do it for 1 week, because a lot of people do like to volunteer for that, but maybe can't commit for the whole month. So you can do anything you want for 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever you'd like to do. But we got you covered just in case.
Thank you very much.
And just one more announcement before we move past this part of the service. We just want to make you aware that the trash can that we will be using is in the back corner there. There used to be one here, and there used to be a larger one back there. We're not doing multiple trash cans now because we want to make sure we really leave this place better than we found it. And it gets a little hard to do that when you have to remember where all the trash cans are. So that is our trash can, and you can use it as much as you need to. We will keep putting bags into it. We just wanted to let you know when you go looking for a trash can, we're not trying to confuse you. It's just right back there in that corner.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Next.
I asked the person who does it extremely well to begin us with.
This is one I'm gonna choke.
So, as Vicky is talking about visioning today, I gave a look around for what I had that might add to that, embellish that, introduce that. And I'd just gotten a new book by Marianne Williamson. It's 365 Daily Devotionals. And I got it so I could use it for this kind of opportunity. So I picked the one that says, "Today I choose happiness." And as I read it, see if it puts you in a state of visioning about happiness. "The circumstances of my life may go up and down, for the mortal world is changeable. The immortal world, however, is changeless, for there is only love. I build my house on the rock of the immortal world. Today I choose only immortal thoughts. I extend my perception beyond what my senses perceive to know what my heart knows is true. I withdraw my belief that I need anyone or anything to be other than they are in order for me to be secure. I know that whenever fear expresses itself, love will ultimately prevail. Therefore, I need not fear, nor cry, nor despair. To the extent to which I see what is truly true, I see only cause for happiness. Happiness is the choice I make today. It does not rest on my circumstances, but on my frame of mind. I surrender to God any emotional habits that have led me down the path of unhappiness, and I pray for guidance in shifting my thoughts. In cultivating the habits of happiness, I attract the people and the situations which match its frequency. I smile more often. I give praise more often. I give thanks more often. I am glad more often, for such is my choice today.
Thank you, Bev, and thank you, Lo. Such a lovely way to lay a foundation. I am so excited about being able to present this information to you all today. Some of you may remember that we are actually right now, LCSL is in the midst of the visioning class for those who were able to take it. This coming Tuesday is week 7 of the class, and so this is like a perfect time to share with you about visioning, and I'm quite sure that there will be another opportunity. I don't know when, but that's already in the wings, so if you get thinking about that, don't hesitate to ask me about it. I want today to introduce you to visioning as a spiritual practice and share with you guys what I've learned in my own process by deepening the use of visioning. And then also, I want to really bring to you the felt sense that it creates within the Centers for Spiritual Living and the Science of Mind teaching a spiritual trinity of practices because most of you probably have some sense that there is a significance to things that are in Trinity. Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. For Centers for Spiritual Living, there's spirit, soul, and body. And that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at. Pardon me. And then also, I'm going to have some special interest in what is called the creative or spiritual zone. Some of you may be aware within creative practices or within sports that people will talk about, well, you know, I made that hoop because I was in the zone. And maybe you felt yourself sometimes in something that you do that you have a passion for, that sometimes you're just lined up and you can't miss. So we're going to talk about that because the practice of visioning cultivates that zone. And so I want to start by offering you a couple of definitions, and these I'm going to read because they're quotes from other people. And then we're going to get a little clarity about when we hear the word visioning, it's easy to think about visioning boards or visualization, and it's actually different things. They work together, but there is a great distinction between visualization, for example, and visioning. And I'm going to go over that. So to start for the definition, there's a couple of them here. The visioning process involves the transformation of consciousness, starting at the level of the consciousness known as our normal or waking state. We begin to relax, allowing ourselves to gradually surrender control, turning it over to spirit, our higher power, which is deep within ourselves. That's by Matthew Heim. And then another, and these are both from the visioning class. Visioning is a core practice that is a natural outgrowth of moving through the 4 stages of spiritual development and is a sign of our spiritual evolution. Visioning helps keep us in the 3rd and 4th stages of spiritual unfoldment in relationship to spirit, consciousness, and eventually it can help us live our lives entirely in that 4th stage where we know we are one with our source. Now, the difference between a vision board and visioning is, you know, when you do a vision board, you start with a blank slate, right? And then you gather all kinds of ideas of what you have in mind of what you want to create for your life. And that's a very powerful process and can lend to things like what you want to then take into affirmative prayer and things like that. Visioning, on the other hand, is almost like that going inside out. In visioning, we cultivate a space of as much unconditional love as we can imagine, and then we imagine ourselves as that blank slate. And God is the one then picking and choosing and sending us images about what is possible in the highest and best of our lives. And there's a way that we begin that process, and we'll be talking about that. And then the difference between visualization and visioning is, in a visualization, you are imagining yourself walking through something. You're actually getting that feeling for what it's like to do what you'd like to do. And there again, in visioning, rather than presupposing and picturing exactly how something's going to feel, we're just opening ourselves up totally and letting go and really allowing. Actually, it starts with a question. There's a question that we take into the visioning process, and allowing that question then to be answered by the depths of our connection to spirit. And so then once you have that impress, when you're doing the visioning process and you've opened up and you've gotten impressions from spirit, then doing things like visualization and working with what we've got from visioning, it all kind of works together, okay? And so the way the process works, it's intended to be done with a partner or in a group, although you can also do it individually. And the way that you can do it individually, it's a facilitated process, but you can record it. And you can either do a recording such as by Reverend Dr. Michael, and we're actually going to hear him speak about this, and then when I get to the meditation today, I'm actually going to walk you through the visioning process so that you have a feel for what it is. And so once you have someone that's going to help you facilitate it, you come up with a question. And actually, you know, on a cognitive level, we love it when we feel like we've had our questions answered, because when we have a question, it's like that is inspired to the unknown and maybe is a little unsettling. But in one aspect of spiritual development, being in the divine I don't know is sometimes the most powerful place you can start in to really allow what we might not even imagine as going to be the highest and best to come through. And so Mary Morrissey says, when we ask the right question, the corresponding answer will come through, you know, because it's a matter of like law. Like if you have the right question, the matching answer comes to it like that, just organically. And that's one of the reasons that we go into visioning with a divine question. And so you form your visioning question. And you'll see what that is when we get to that part. Just for example, a very generic one, which is probably part of what I'm going to use today, is saying, what is the highest and best vision of spirit expressed as my life? And then from that base question, there are additional questions that are asked. And as you ask the question, then there's a pause so that you can then receive. And the practice of visioning regularly strengthens your sense of how it feels to engage those questions and how it feels to let go of presuppositions and just allow what comes. And when the impressions start to come, it doesn't necessarily make cognitive sense because you're using the other faculties of your consciousness, okay? And it's kind of like turning over pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, you know? All the pieces are there. It's like when we allow that visioning process, Spirit puts more and more pieces up on the board. And then when we're doing other things besides visioning, when we're either in, say, treatment or meditation, then we can take those pieces and work with them with those processes as well. And so that's how the visioning process is done. And I'm going to change my page in my notes so I don't go off on a tangent. I get so excited about this stuff. Okay, so there are 4 stages in the evolution of consciousness per Dr. Michael Beckwith's process. That's not to say that there's not other ways that people might describe this, but as Reverend Dr. Michael teaches it and has experienced it, to a great extent we start out here at the level of feeling subject to life. We have the feeling like life is just happening and we're responding. And it can be easy to say, well, how can it not be that way? Things keep happening and I have to respond to them. But it is possible by spiritual practice and working to train the human mind to flip that around to where you actually do know that your life and your experiences is being generated from within you. And so then when that flip happens and you start to recognize that you do have a say in what happens in your life and how it happens, and that you can cultivate the qualities of life that you prefer, that's the second stage. And that's when we've learned about the power of choice and that we have a relationship with God in how we co-create on the planet and what we prefer in life. So that's stage 2. And then in stage 3, the interesting thing is that when we really get it, that we do have the power of choice, and we're not just floating around on an ocean being slammed by this wave and that wave, that we actually have a rudder and we can choose and we can navigate those waves and we can participate in it, then that's when it gets easier to surrender to that which is greater than ourselves. You know, when someone who's really been through the ringer, if you sit with someone as a practitioner or a minister and you say, oh, honey, just let go. Just let go and let God. And that person's like, are you crazy? I can't let go. Well, when you're in that state, when you've been hurt, that's not the time to let go. Because it's not about pushing yourself into something that's just going to be so completely overwhelming. But as you practice with your power of choice and you really see that, yes, the universe is going to respond, then you can let go, because if you ever felt the need to, you could then pick your power of choice back up. And so it really is okay to say, yeah, God and I have got this, and I can let go and spread my wings and catch, the updraft and see what happens. And I don't have to be so afraid I'm going to fall. And so that's the third stage, and that's the stage that we're going to put a little bit of emphasis on today, because it's that stage where you naturally get into the zone and you're able to then become a pure vessel for Spirit. And Spirit says, okay, here's someone that's ready to go. Let me just fill this vessel and do something greater than they ever imagined. So that's stage 3. And then stage 4 is when we have so much of that experience that we come to understand on a more everyday level that we are the life of God, and God is our life, that there is no separation. So we move from being a vessel for Spirit to literally embodying the I am. And that's where the Christ said, I am the light of the world. When Christ said, I am the light of the world, he wasn't saying, I am the light and you're not. He was saying, I am the light of the world, and what I have done, you will do also and more. And this is part of how that is. So, those are the 4 stages of consciousness. And let's see. These stages can be happening in different levels at different areas of your life. Okay? It's not like, it's boom, 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 boom. It's not a rigid thing. It depends on how you're feeling in a day. It depends on what you're being pressed by. So there could be times when you have someone who basically does live as being a vessel of Spirit, is pretty good at really letting go and letting God. And then depending on what happens, if we suddenly lose a beloved person, or something happens where we thought we were resourced in an area and then somehow we find out we're not, you can get knocked back and feel like, life is doing unto you. And that's part of the process. It's not an either or thing. So as you look at where am I at in different places of my life, it's not about measuring and judging and saying, oh, well, I'm down here. I'm in the first stage of consciousness here. Poor me. I haven't done this right. It's not about that at all. It's all working together. Okay? And so now, the thing about the Trinity is that spiritual practices, they literally strengthen our spiritual muscles. And here at Centers for Spiritual Living, we have been very, very good at offering you all the information and the practices about treatment and meditation. Okay? And some of you who are new today, that's going to be a new term. So treatment is affirmative prayer. And all that means is that the conviction of prayer that we speak from is spoken affirmatively, as knowing that it's done even before we've asked. And so when we ask, it's done. Okay? And there's a process that we go through for that. That's called treatment. And then meditation, as you all know, we do meditations every Sunday. Meditation is a practice of training the spiritual mind in use of the brain. Okay? Because very much the brain can be like an untrained puppy, as Gordon is wont to assure you. When you have a puppy, you have to go over the same thing many times. So when you're in meditation, what you're using that focal point for is that's at like the touchstone to take your brain back to. You sit in the stillness, you use your focal point, and you're training your brain to do what your higher self is requesting it to do, rather than running off on the willy-nilly tracks that have been trained for so long, or, because of repetition. So the thing is that visioning is a third leg in that in spiritual practices, and when you're working the three of them together. So now I want to show you a couple of slides that get into some examples. So go ahead, if you would, honey, and give me the first slide. So this is a synchronicity that happened to me while I was away this week that says a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And that is a piece of wood that is hand-carved. It was hand-carved by a very dear loved one of my nephew who was married while I was gone, and that was a wedding gift to them. And so then you see the cord there. That was a hand-woven cord. That Trinity that we hear about, and the power of like the number 3, that's not just sounding like a good idea. It's structurally. A triangle is the strongest geometric structure that there is in the universe. Okay? And so when you're working with something that has 3 strands, then it's going to be naturally bolstered in strength. So go ahead to the next slide, hon. So when you think about it, there's treatment, meditation, and visioning. And if you get into the process of practicing which each of these 3, then they're just going to augment each other and exponentially ramp up your whole experience of life. So go ahead to the next one. So I just wanted to show you that's why the Great Pyramids, well, one of the reasons, there's many reasons why the Great Pyramids are in the form of a pyramid, but that's like that's not like, it is a 3-dimensional triangle. Okay? The reason why those structures have stood, ad infinitum is because they knew that the triangular structure is going to not only create the greatest strength, but also, according to some, actually augment the powers around it. And if you get to reading about why the pyramids are and what the ancient people use those for, you'll see that there's a whole thing about it literally being a vortex for, like mystical processes and energies. And so that's the end of the slides. Let me see one thing here. Okay. Okay, so let me spend just a moment. Who all here can identify with what is meant by the zone, where you knew, man, you're going to throw that ball and it's going to hit that basket no matter what you do? Okay, good. So there's some of you here that know exactly what that is. We're going to play Dr. Reverend Michael now, so you can hear his take on this, and then I'm going to go right into our meditation, which wraps up the presentation, but it's going to be also a recap to what I've said here, because I'm going to walk you actually through the visioning process. So go ahead and start the recording, honey.
As we segue from stage 2, we're now entering into the domain of stage,
Can you hear?
otherwise known as stage 3, where we
Up
are
just a little bit.
identified as a channel, a vehicle, an instrument, an opening through which life has its way with us. We say in substance that something is operating through us, which is why we're identifying ourselves as a channel now. Remember the first stage of victimization. Something was happening to us. The second stage, as a manifester, individuals growing into honing their ourselves up to a deeper level of surrender, based on the awareness of unity and oneness, based on the awareness of divine order, something begins to operate through us. This is akin to being in the zone. In this case, the spiritual zone. Everyone has probably had a moment in their life where beyond what they had planned and beyond what they were thinking, something began to operate through them that took them beyond the level of excellence previously achieved or attained. Singers have talked about this, poets have talked about this, artists have talked about this, athletes have talked about this. They've prepared, they visualized, they planned, they did so much to be ready and prepared for their particular act, where there was an actor that had to act out a part or whether an athlete was running an event or swimming. Suddenly, time stopped. And beyond their planning, something beyond themselves began to operate through them. And they were a witness. They witnessed this excellence, this spontaneous goodness, this moment of sheer creativity began to take over their life. And when the event was over, they said something like, something just used me. Something took me over. Something beyond me began to sing through me and run through me and act through me and write through me. This is the stage of being a channel. Something operating through us. Of course, this is born from the planning that we have done in stage 2, the recognition that there's only one power, one presence, and then that gave birth to a moment of surrender, of releasing, and of letting go. This stage of operating through us is a stage in our development where, just like an airplane surrendering to the law of aerodynamics, we release and we let go, and something begins to take place. Now, let me remind you that your moment of surrender, again, it's not the old concept of surrender where you're surrendering your will to a God outside of yourself. No, you're surrendering to the next stage of your own development, the next stage of your own evolution, with the awareness that your life is the life of God. Your life is the life of God, you see. And so surrender takes on a whole nother vibration. And so stage 3 is about being an instrument, a channel, an opening, and a place for life to happen, with the awareness that life is magnificent, that life is beautiful, that life is alive, that life never compromises itself, and so we can let go.
So we release and we let go, and we allow Reverend Dr. Michael's words to have opened the space of unconditional compassion. Breathing in that deep, deep love. Just take a moment to feel it now. Feel the safety in this room, the sharedness of like mind, open heart. As we engage briefly the steps of the visioning process. What is the highest and best vision of spirit expressed as my life now? What does this highest and best vision look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What must I release in order to manifest this highest and best vision of spirit expressed as my life? what is mine to release. What must I embrace in order to manifest this highest and best vision of spirit expressed as my life now? What must I embrace? What must I become in order to manifest this highest and best vision of spirit expressed as my life now? What must I become? Last question. Is there anything else for me to be aware of in consciousness about this vision now? Is there anything else for me to be aware of? And so we breathe into relaxing and receiving even deeper with great, great gratitude for the knowing that our life is the life of God. And so I let it be, and so it is. Just so you know, in an actual visioning process, you can spend larger amounts of time sitting with each question, and each question is actually asked a second time, so you can really sit with it.
Table, and it is also available online. Here's my cheat sheet at lcslonline.org. So to make sure I do something that might not be in the right order, but let us say our prosperity affirmation together. In the wake of generosity and gratitude, good turns into great, and more is summons to me. Yes.
We are so profoundly grateful for our tithes and offerings, remembering that indeed, as we give, so do we receive, and that ancient wisdom tells us that when we give from what we have, eventually it comes to overflowing. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Now, this is our prayer time for anyone who has prayer requests. This is the prayer box, and we bring it here somewhat symbolically, knowing that whether you've had an opportunity to put your prayer in here or not, that it is before the altar of God, recognizing the one and only one. And as the one is the all that is all, every life in this dimension or in the beyond, that the one heart beats at all levels in all ways, and that the qualities of God are available at every point, eternally and everlasting. Nothing left out, nothing forgotten. And from this alignment in mind, heart, and soul, I realize the good of every intention in prayer for the people here present and throughout this community of LCSL and beyond. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God, for the good that only says yes. And I release it, I let it be, and so it is. And now, join us for our closing song. And certainly, you're welcome to stand as you are able and dance a jig if you'd like. So, just make connection with someone near you in some way that's comfortable for you. Eye contact, maybe wrap a finger around another finger. Feel the energy moving. Everything in God is vibrating. And Spirit loves these opportunities to play, to say, these are vessels that I can take to the next level. This is the leading edge of my promise that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It is only ours to engage it. So stay in touch with each other. Speak your word to people who can hear you. Speak your word to God. Speak your word to your own heart. And then let it go. And watch for what comes back from this moment today. Watch for the images. Watch for things that are coming around that are your puzzle pieces to put together with Spirit. And we'll do it together. And thank you, thank you, thank you for being who you are in this community. Amen.